Welcome to another episode of Insider Ties. I don't even have any theme music anymore. I was doing that a long time ago, not anymore. But this topic this week, if you guys are really interested in being more thoughtful about the sneaker industry and sneaker culture, then hopefully you appreciate these kind of drop-in videos. I'm not very consistent with it, and I'm going to try and do better. But the topic that I'm talking about this week is the fact that Allbirds stock tumbled. And I'm getting into why it tumbled, but I also see opportunity there. So let me dive into the post, and I'm going to run through it and give you guys some details. But you can see the post over here to my side. And in the description, you can go to the link. But here's what's important for you to consider. Allbirds was this amazing company as it launched. And they created a shoe that was more sustainable. And I have to use air quotes because a lot of the things that Allbirds is touting, it's better than the standard sneaker in the sneaker industry, but it's not really as good as it could be. And there kind of lies one of the major issues. But when Allbirds launched their IPO, it moved up to a height of, as a matter of fact, let me make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself so we can stay on top of this. Let's go to the year. And if you guys are over here to my side, if you're looking, you can pull up the NASDAQ or you can pull up Yahoo, and they all have tickers that will show you the stock prices. So if you guys are like, I don't know a whole lot about stocks, then you can use this information. Do not take my advice in these regards. I am not an analyst and I'm not certified, so I can't tell you what to buy. I simply know from watching and paying attention that Allbirds was at a high of $28.89 on November 3rd, which was very close to when the initial IPO happened. What's an IPO? Initial public offering. Now, I know you've probably heard IPO as it relates to StockX. They have an initial public offering, but it's typically for a product. This is the stock market where you can invest your money and grow your money by choosing different shares of companies that are publicly traded. So Allbirds, when they launched, was at $28.89. That's a high of $28.89. As you notice, if you're looking here, you see that the price is $5.02. That's a gigantic drop. Gigantic drop. But here's the worst of it. If we just go back to the month, the low was $3.75. But why is this happening? And are you even paying attention to it? Am I just going to be talking into the void here? I hope not. But I'm going to get into a few things about why Allbirds has dropped. And I hope you guys can see and learn from it in regard to, let's say you're going to work for a brand, or if you're going to launch your own brand, then you can kind of avoid, it's very hard to avoid some of the problems when you'll never have the kind of valuation and money that Allbirds has had on hand. And now that they are in a publicly traded company, that the amount of money that they have. But when Allbirds launched, they kind of hit a wave where apparel and footwear was going logoless. So consumers weren't interested in broadcasting how much they paid for their apparel and footwear, specifically in Silicon Valley. In all honesty, that was not the case, that things were going logoless. And it wasn't about fashion losing the logo. The logos disappeared because of the rise of knit and wool sneakers. And Allbirds makes a wool sneaker. That's what they're known for. That's what they're famous for, is the wool runner. So when that trend of knit and wool sneakers started to rise, a company could sell a sneaker without affixing the logo to it, because the weave of the knit or the fabric itself allowed for cleaner lines and inexpensive manufacturing. But an interesting thing kind of happened during that moment where brands decided to become logoless, or the no logo movement. The big brands in the marketplace doubled down on logos. So Adidas and Nike, even on their premier knit running shoes, they place logos on top of the knit. So the Ultra Boost actually had a cage. They did have an uncaged version, but they had a cage on the Ultra Boost, and you could see the logo. Even the NMD from Adidas had logos. And the NMD, they made a wool shoe with the NMD as well. So Nike, on their Flyknit shoes, and I said PrimeKnit, I hope I didn't mix that up, but Nike on their Flyknit shoes, you can see the swoosh plainly on all of their Flyknit shoes. They did not go logoless. But that's because they understood the marketplace, and they knew any product that didn't immediately reference the brand, it could be easily forgotten. But more important, I'm going to get to why this is critical for a company like Allbirds, that was a new company launching into a more competitive space after they became a public company. Allbirds stayed simple and rolled out a limited number of SKUs. That's another problem, creating basically the perfect palette to be infringed upon and stolen. Now, if you look at this picture here, these are Le Mouton shoes on Amazon. Amazon also knocked off Allbirds with their 206 collective wool sneakers. The lack of design on the Allbirds sneaker introduced a very easy path to infringement. Now, the irony, if you look at this La Mouton shoe, you can actually see a logo here at the back of the shoe. They put a logo on their shoe, but Allbirds did not. So when I go back up here to the top, there's nothing that distinguishes this Allbirds shoe from the La Mouton. And we know that millions and millions of people shop on Amazon. And when Amazon has a copy of the shoe and then this La Mouton, it combines to contribute to a decrease in the sales that Allbirds can attain on that platform. By the way, Allbirds does not have a store on Amazon, which is a smart thing, but unfortunately it's a bad thing because Allbirds could brand gate and challenge a lot of these knockoffs, but it'll be very difficult for them to pull that off. So maybe you don't waste the time trying to fight Amazon. Unfortunately, the type of shoes they're creating are simple, logoless shoes. And the type of people who shop on Amazon gravitate towards that type of design. So here you have a company that launches with this logoless design in a very crowded marketplace. They get knocked off, and then another couple of things take place. So Allbirds, their share price was, at the time that I wrote this article over here, was at $4.92. I won't get into the comments on the idea of insider trading happening with Allbirds stock, but this is what's critical. There were really good opportunities for Allbirds to offset the knockoffs, but the resources that they had available to them, they didn't utilize at all. So in 2020, right? And I'm going to open up a couple of windows here. In 2020, Allbirds collaborated with Pensole. So this is one class. Now you're going to see, I wrote about this on the site. You can see it over here. They collaborated with Pensole. There was never a product release. And it was really interesting to see that. But then Allbirds came back and collaborated with Pensole again. I'm opening up a second window here. Still, no product. Now, Pensole as a design school did not hold all the answers for Allbirds, but when Allbirds worked with Pensole, they had a chance to do a lot of learning with a cooler, younger demographic, and they could have gained insight in how the sneaker landscape, our sneaker landscape, sneaker culture, sneaker heads, all the, whatever you want to call it, sneaker enthusiasts, they could have gained more insight from those young students at Pensole, but nothing was developed. All right, so that's another misstep. So when we're piling these things up and we're looking at it, and I know this feels like a podcast and I'm talking to myself in a room, but when we look back at it, we look at the fact that they had this logoless design that was great when they started, and then they had a limited amount of SKUs, and then they had an opportunity with a design academy and they didn't capitalize. Things just continue to pile up, and you get the case of the straw that breaks the camel's back, right? So Allbirds was also the first company to invest in natural fiber welding. If you haven't heard of natural fiber welding, they make a bio-based material that can go back to the soil without hurting the environment. That material is called Mirum. Now, a few months ago, if you really watched the station, you saw I did an interview with the team at Camper. Now, Camper was able to get to the market with Mirum, although Allbirds was the first sneaker company to invest in Mirum and natural fiber welding. Allbirds had it first. There's another company called Nooch Footwear that's coming with the product. Now, I'm pretty sure Allbirds is moving towards a release, but right now, nothing. These are completely different instances that I'm mapping out here, emblematic of an innovative company freezing. And this is what's crazy. Back at the beginning of this article, I talked about the fact that they did a collab with Jeff Staple. When you have a company deciding to do something in hype beast kind of areas with Jeff Staple, and this is not a knock on Jeff Staple, when a company decides to do that, they're playing around with something that's not authentic. So let me read this to you. The failure to work with Pensole and the slowness of delivering a new sneaker with Mirum are layers. But the inauthentic collab with Jeff Staple is insight into a company searching for an identity. So this is what it seemed like Allbirds was asking. Are we simple and boring, or are we young and fresh? You've built the company on no logos, basic wool shoes. Working with Jeff Staple was not moving forward, that was freezing. It's the automatic default of a brand looking for direction, and their first attempt is to try and tap into sneaker culture. Simply placing the staple pigeon on a pair of shoes isn't connecting with sneaker enthusiasts. It's pandering. It doesn't build a long-term relationship and create new fans. It creates hype. The reality beyond one limited drop or a limited hype drop is Allbirds is manufacturing. And this is critical. So listen to what I'm saying here. The reality of them partnering with Jeff Staple, them making a limited amount of SKUs, them missing the opportunity to collaborate with Pensole, them missing the opportunity to produce a Mirum sneaker when Camper did so. And their focus in delivering this kind of 2-pair series with Jeff Staple, all of those things piled up. And then when you add COVID and the supply chain issues and the manufacturing issues, Allbirds took a shot. And that shot basically allowed a company like Amazon with its own ability to import its shoes on its own airline, on its own freight. Remember that. Now, and this is important. Amazon was already eating into the marketplace of Allbirds with their simple design elements on their wool runners. And Amazon was able to get their shoes in. And when Allbirds' shoes were stuck on the ocean in freight because of supply chain issues. So you have all of these different things and all of that stuff that I just named, it adds up. And what you end up with is a company that was originally, when they launched, at $28.89 a share, going down to $3.75 a share, and now they're at $5.02. But here's the thing. There are solutions. Allbirds can do what? And this is a business kind of aspect of a discussion, so hopefully you guys will listen to this for yourselves if you're starting your own businesses, just like I am. I'm in my own business, and I listen to it, and I write these things, and I recognize things that I also have to work on. Allbirds can expand product offerings. They can develop more challenging design. They're offering apparel. Even though things seem too simplistic, they can develop more distribution wholesale partnerships. or take on a small store format in key cities. Allbirds isn't a broken company. To the contrary, they are a series of small moves away from climbing back. That recent Adidas collab that they did shows that the brand recognizes sustainability can be cool. When Allbirds decides to double down on educating the consumer versus placating the consumer with like topical eco information, the company can find its way. If they think about a Deckers and Merrill who created testing labs, if they did something like that versus imitating Puma and Nike with collabs with like Staple, they move forward. Right now, the share price is reflective of what the company is. Allbirds could make it reflective of where they are going. And that's the end of this video. So hopefully you guys understand what I'm talking about, and it's adding to the kind of collection of information you have about the sneaker industry. If you have questions, leave them in the comment. If you think this is a video that I should probably start doing a lot more of, transferring these articles into videos, let me know in the comments as well. I appreciate you guys who stayed this whole time and watched it, because, you know, I know it's not super sexy, but it is very important information for those of you who are really interested in the heart and soul of the sneaker industry, which is manufacturing, shipping, supply chains, and distribution, and not just the hype stuff. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.